Welcome to Walk in the Park. This is Tony Ingram, your host, again for another episode. This one is today is recorded on July 25th. Going to play for the following week and any other times that the station decides to put me up here. This time, we're going to take a little trip to start off with. We're going to go various places. We're going to start off going to Buttermilk Falls State Park. Okay. Now, this is up the trail. Probably most people don't recognize this scene right here. It's one of the lesser falls along the trail. If you go up the trail in Buttermilk Falls, there's quite a few waterfalls besides the big main falls you're interested in. However, I did not take this picture recently because the water is much lower. Now, this is not a lot of water in the falls, and sometimes it's a whole lot of water in the falls, but this is sort of a moderate to low amount. Well, this is what it looked like in the past week. Not much water in the gorge, Glen Creek. That's called in Buttermilk. I'm sorry, not Glen Creek, Buttermilk Creek in Buttermilk Glen or Buttermilk Gorge. Glen Creek is actually the name of the stream in Watkins Glen, so you get them all mixed up after a while. But obviously, everyone knows it's been dry, and some portions of the country are having a serious drought, and we've had some rain, so I don't know what the status is for farmers, but certainly for waterfalls, there's not a lot to go around. This is one of the interesting things about this sort of politically is that this has been a dry, warm year, unprecedented, busted all kinds of records. The probability of this happening without the presence of human-caused global warming is virtually nil, and neither of the presidential candidates are talking about global warming, which is one of the biggest issues in our face. It's a global-sized elephant in the room. Well, anyway, let's go on to something else. We'll look at some other things. We're going to go another park now. Let's see. Let's go down to... I'll cool you off with this winter view of flying over Cayuga Lake. I think I was flying through Pittsburgh one day, and I got this shot out the window. But the reason I chose this is that you can look down in the lower center. You can see Cayuga Falls State Park, the Cayuga Point sticking out into Cayuga Lake. And so that's a great place. And if you look straight up in sort of upper center, slightly to the right, you see a plume there. And that's actually a stack, an exhaust stack for our power plant. This is used to be called AES Cayuga. It's at Milliken Point. And you can see that from Cayuga Falls, and you can see that from a lot of places along the lake. And some people think it's a nice landmark, and some people think it's an eyesore. In any case, there's been some activity and inactivity at that power plant. Let's go take another view from another park. Now, it might be a little bit hard to see. You look up at the upper center on the horizon, you can see that same stack and plume. However, this is from Aurora or just south of Aurora at Long Point State Park on the east shore. Of course, Cayuga is on the west shore. So it's visible from lots of parks around the lake and lots of other private locations and so forth on a boat. Very visible landmark. I think the stack is something like 600 feet high. You can't miss it, except on a very cloudy day or something. So last week, I was working on the tour boat, the MV Handle, Tia Harrow Tours, Cayuga Lake Floating Classroom, and I've been doing this for years and do it part-time, and it's a lovely job. And we had a special tour for the Genoa Historical Society up in Genoa in southern Cayuga County, King Ferry area, the town of Genoa. And so we did a couple of tours from them from Don's Marina, which is near Atwaters and King Ferry and so forth. And it was a great trip. But we cruised up from Ithaca, our dock in Ithaca, to get up there. And on the way, we passed the power plant. So I took some pictures. I got closer up. And this was in the morning. And you get very close to the power plant. So I got a whole lot of pictures. I won't show them all to you here, but I'll show you a couple. And I'm going to, let's see, we'll go take on the way back, I got different lighting. I got the power plant, the sun and the other part of the sky. So I'm going to go now to find some information here I have about this power plant. Okay, so, well, this power plant was originally owned by New York State. In fact, it was built by New York State Electric and Gas Corporation. It was rebuilt at some point. And then it was bought by AES, let's see, AES Corporation. Where was that? AES Cayuga is what it was called, yeah. AES is a global energy corporation, which has run into hard times and went bankrupt, and now is owned and operated by a group of bondholders. Let's see. It's Upstate New York Power Producers acquired the plant, and another coal-burning plant in Somerset, Niagara County, and they're calling it the Cayuga Operating Company. So this is the Cayuga Operating Company now. It's no longer AES Cayuga, or Milliken Station was one of its names. It's certainly at Milliken Point. So they paid about $300 million for it. One of the concerns about the power plant is it hasn't operated for a number of months, actually. And one of the reasons it was not profitable was so-called natural gas from the Marcellus shale gas. They've drilled so much of it in Pennsylvania that, I don't know, it's about half the price of coal right now. So burning coal is not a good deal compared to that gas. But they're both fossil fuels, and they both have their problems, as many of us know. For instance, take a look at, here's the coal pile that's brought up by train from the south, comes up through Pennsylvania. Here's the train. The train goes all along the lake. It used to go the length of the lake, but after, I don't know, about 50 years ago, or a little more, they stopped it in the 50s, I think, just at Milliken Point for the power plant and also for our salt mine, which is another whole story. So the coal is brought up by coal trains and piled up here off the trains and then burned in the power plant. And of course, coal is the #1 source of global warming gases, I think. And it's you know, this power plant is the #1 source of global warming gases in the county. And also, burning coal releases sulfur dioxide, releases mercury and other things that are harmful. And although this plant is not a particularly dirty one, but you've heard that, you know, this has got some of the better technology, at least it used to. But you've heard the term clean coal from the industry. Well, don't you believe it. There's no such thing as clean coal. There's just dirty coal and then somewhat less dirty coal. Depends on the kind of coal you burn and depends on the power plant and the technology involved. But all of it releases harmful gases into the atmosphere and heavy metals and things like that. Plus has a tremendous amount of, this plant has a tremendous amount of fly ash, they call it, from burning the coal, which must be kept out of Cayuga Lake, and sometimes it gets into the lake. So, and also out of streams and so forth. So, so where does this coal come from? This train comes up from the south, comes through Pennsylvania. Well, if you go to a website, you can see it down there, ilovemountains.org. You go to that website and you type in your zip code, and then you can select where your power plant, you may be getting your power from, what power plant, if it's a coal burning plant that's supplying your power. And I did that, and turns out that at least some, if not most, I don't know, of our coal that is burned at Cayuga Lake comes from West Virginia, from places like this. This is not the very mine, but it's called mountaintop removal mining. Very controversial, destructive mining. And I'll read a couple of things about it. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency defines mountaintop removal as follows. Mountaintop removal valley fill is a mining practice where the tops of mountains are removed, exposing the seams of coal. Mountaintop removal can involve removing 500 feet or more of the summit to get at buried seams of coal. The earth from the mountaintop is then dumped in the neighboring valleys. So, it goes on. Mountaintop removal is a relatively new type of coal mining that began in Appalachia in the 1970s as an extension of conventional strip mining techniques. Primarily, mountaintop removal is occurring in West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee. Coal companies in Appalachia are increasingly using this method because it allows for almost complete recovery of coal seams while reducing the number of workers required to a fraction of what conventional methods require. And ilovemountains.org says, people across, well, let's see, wait a minute. Largely hidden from most Americans, a highly destructive form of coal mining called mountaintop removal has devastated 1 million acres in the central and southern Appalachian Mountains. People across America use electricity that is at least partially generated by mountaintop removal coal, but is a small amount that could easily come from cleaner sources of energy. So they dump the top of the mountain in the valley, ruins the streams, ruins the communities, ruins people's farms, ruins their aquifers, their watersheds, and so forth. It's a really, it's a mess. Problem is, out of sight, out of mind. The power of distant markets. You can apply that all over the world. When we get products from overseas, we don't know what happens to the environment and to the people that produce them. And even like went back to the 17 and 1800s with the, or the 16 and 1700s, I should say, with beaver hats in England, resulted in the decimation of beaver in North America. But the folks in London, do they know that? Not particularly. So, the Marcellus shale gas has reduced the value or of the coal because, well, it's cheaper. It's about half the price now because so much gas is being produced, and the price of gas has fallen tremendously, which is probably going to slow down its development too. So I don't know why this company decided to go back to coal, but I think it sees a future in the long run. But I don't think any of us have a future in the long run if we continue to use these kind of global warming, fossil fuel producing things. And people, when you say, wow, this so-called natural gas, oh, that doesn't cause as much global warming. It's clean burning. But everything that goes up to the burning uses a tremendous amount of energy, and also methane leaks. Methane, which is the gas, comes up out of the ground from leaking around casings, leaking from shallower levels. And methane is 20 to 30 times more potent as a global warming gas than carbon dioxide resulting from combustion of fossil fuels. So there's a lot of problems here. Okay, so let's go to oil. Well, oil's got its problems too. This is the Deepwater Horizon explosion. Thank you, Coast Guard, for this picture. The oil pollution and oil wars and so forth all have terrible problems. And it's a fossil fuel again, and it puts a lot of carbon dioxide and a lot of global warming gases into the atmosphere and ruins environments and so forth. So all these fossil fuels have problems, and we're heating up the earth, and so we're getting an increased intensity, drying, and more forest fires. Our climate and everything is more intense. So now we're having all these terrible forest fires now, and terrible drought, drying out our forests, drying out our grassland, drying out our crops, and then fires take over, and then the soil dries up, and all kinds of problems. So the normal climate gets intensified, whether it be dry or whether it be storms, tremendous storms that like the record tornadoes we had last year, and hurricanes and so forth. Not that we never had these things, we just have more of them and they're more intense. And then, of course, flooding. So we get extremes. We get this was Tropical Storm Lee last September, and there was Irene. They got up to higher latitudes than some of these storms might have otherwise because of the warming of the oceans due to global warming. So let's go to another park. We're going down to a national park, Cape Hatteras National Seashore. This is down in North Carolina, and Cape Hatteras juts out into the ocean. And there's a lot to say about the place, but it has this amazing lighthouse. It's like 200 feet tall, and the latest version of it was built in 1870. This is an Air Force picture, actually. And over the last couple of hundred years, the ocean has worn away the shore, and the storms and so forth, and have washed over the island and pushed the sand from the ocean side into the bay side. Now, this is a natural process. Let's see, I get some of my information about that. The National Park Service stresses that this is not an unnatural process, but so there's some interesting things to say here. So But the storms that we have and the erosion of our shorelines is definitely increased by the rise of sea level caused by global warming, the expansion of the ocean. The water itself expands, takes more volume, and the melting of our Greenland ice cap in the Arctic and the Antarctic is raising and will continue to raise our sea levels. And then the intensity of storms. Hurricane Isabel, I think it was, cut a new hole in the island and an inlet through it, and they had to refill it to rejoin the island so people could get from one place to another and kids could get to school and so forth. In 1999, the Cape Hatteras Light Station, which consists of 7 historic structures, was successfully relocated 2,900 feet from the spot on which it had stood since 1870. Because of the threat of shoreline erosion, the entire light station was safely moved to a new site where the historic buildings and cisterns were placed in spatial and elevational relationship to each other exactly as they had been at the original site. When the National Park Service has met its obligation to both historic preservation and cultural protection, the much heralded move of this historic station, especially the lighthouse, was hotly debated and closely watched. Well, it's an interesting thing. Just found out this week that the North Carolina legislators passed a bill that forces state leaders to ignore scientific predictions that sea levels could rise by more than 3 feet in the next century. Just weeks ago, a U.S. Geological Survey study found the Cape Hatteras region a hotspot for sea level rise. We can't ignore sound science when it comes to global warming. Rising sea levels in North Carolina's 300 miles of coastline. So they're called on the governor to put this matter to rest with their veto. This is from signon.org, which is a petition site run by moveon.org. So hopefully North Carolina won't be as stupid as their legislature is trying to be. So we got to get away from these global warming technologies and go to some sustainable, non-destructive, or well, every technology has problems, but at least they won't emit these global warming gases, which in the long term really kind of doom us. So of course solar, it is potential to get entirely dependent on these things. So all right, well, let's go on to we'll go on to other topics that maybe are a little lighter. I'm going to now take us to a to the Grassroots Festival that happened in Trumansburg. So I'm just going to bring this up in a second here. This video. It's going to take me a moment to get this up. Let's see. All right. Takes a second. had a little more of that, but I, kind of running down on time here, so I think I'm going to go to some other topics. But yes, that was the Grassroots Festival taking place at the Trumansburg Fairgrounds this past weekend, 4 days of festivities, and I was able to get there for Sunday at least. And I hope you all had a chance to enjoy that, or at least enjoy this little clips, a little sampling of it, and bring back some of that flavor. We're going to go now to a Finger Lakes Land Trust Preserve, and I wear different hats. I got, look at that, Finger Lakes Land Trust hat. So, man of many hats. So this one is in Etna, the Etna Nature Preserve. So where is that? Well, it's in Etna. It's in the, I guess that's the town of Dryden. And you go out Route 366 from Route 13, and then Route 366 off of Route 13 towards Etna. And just before Etna, you get to, there's a parking lot on the left. You can see the lower left there. That's Route 366. Let me get the description of this place up from the Land Trust, just exactly where this is. Take a second here. Wait, there we go. Okay. The Etna Preserve, a few miles northeast of Ithaca, was created in February 1991, and Walter and Sally Spofford donated 12 acres to the Finger Lakes Land Trust. Spoffords had lived in Etna for many years and were avid birders. So anyway, it's kind of neat. It's not a real big place. There was an additional 12 acres added in October 2011, which gives 2,000 feet frontage along one side of Fall Creek, another 2,200 feet of footage along the other side, but that's about a half a mile north of this original preserve. So anyway, on the upper side, you can see there's a trail. So I went on that trail. There's the road, the thing for the trail there, sign. There's the trail marker. I'm going to get right back to this in a second. Excuse me. So it's a kind of a mixed place there. I mean, there's some big trees. The path crosses a little stream, which is a tributary to Fall Creek, no doubt. And here's the stream. It's kind of dry then. This was in early June, actually, so I wonder what it looks like now. And then hikes up through an old spruce forest, a Norway spruce forest. So then it's not all native plants, but there are, I guess it's a really good birding area. There's some of the Norway spruces in there. So there's a lot of exotic plants, some from plantations, probably in this case. Others have just migrated in. But here's some native stuff. On the lower right is a mayapple plant, and the others look like the leaves left over from a spring wildflower called bloodroot. These are probably disappeared. Hopefully I'm not confusing this with something that looks a lot like bloodroot. That's possible. But if you go across the road, let's go back to that map there. There we go. Go across the road, see where the P is for the parking. See, there's a parcel that's right on Fall Creek, which is in the lower part of the picture. And there's a different trail marker there. It's a very short walk to the creek. There's the creek. And Fall Creek, of course, is the largest single tributary to Cayuga Lake. 140 square miles, no, 100, yeah, wait a minute. 140, what is it, whatever, acres, 140,000 acres, I don't know, 14% or something of the watershed. I'm getting a little mixed up here. Anyway, it goes a long ways. It starts up in Cayuga County at something called Lake Como and flows southwest to Cayuga Lake and, of course, over Ithaca Falls, but goes through Dryden and this wonderful preserve and other preserves. And there was some typical moist soil type plants, bottomland things. This is probably ostrich fern, which grows over 3 feet tall. It's a very interesting plant. I've seen a lot of that in upper Buttermilk. And then down on the ground is one I don't see that often, but it's actually not a native plant, called moneywort. And it's sometimes an invasive, but there it is. It's in the loosestrife family. Well, that's about all we have today. So we're going to hope to see you again soon, and we'll go to our closing here.